Hi guys, so today I'm going to walk you through a couple of new products that I have available in my store as well as my Teachable School. I've had several requests lately, which is nice because it gives me ideas and something that I think I can do to assist all of you. I did create some brand new floral vintage overlays, and you can use them in a variety of ways, which I will demonstrate shortly. As well, I have a new fairy portrait editing course up available in my Teachable School, which I know a ton of photographers are super interested in how to edit these themed magic styled portraits. I'm also doing a shoot today with a little girl, and it's going to be a new kind of look for me, and I'm going to do a video walkthrough behind the scenes as well as an edit for you on that as well. So without further ado, let's get started. Hello. Okay, so I'm excited to walk you through some of this new product information that I have. I think I'll start with the fairy portrait just so that you can see. So this is the image that is actually included with the course at my Teachable School, and this is the final edit. So it is a 3-hour course. I know it's a long one, but there's actually quite a bit involved with this edit. And honestly, when I had my portrait studio open, this was the one genre that I made the majority of my income off of. And I've never actually shared how I edit these before. And now that my studio is closed and I have a very small list of exclusive clients that I cater to, I'm happy to share how I do this. So again, this is the before that you will receive this file so you can follow along with me, and this is the after. So in addition to this, I have created a new vintage floral texture package. You can use them as textures or overlays, and I'll just briefly go through them. This is the first one. And these are all handmade by myself, and they're absolutely amazing for a variety of uses. This is the second one. This one's really cool. Here's another and another. I love this one, and this one is pretty amazing as well as this one. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to open up. This is a portrait of my grandkids, and I've used one of my previous floral textures on it, but I'm going to walk you through how to apply one of these. Additionally, I'm going to show you a few of my old master set actions because I've had some people ask me to demo that. So for this one, I'm just going to try and select the backdrop that I think would suit the image best, and I really do think that it would probably be this one. So I'm just going to click on my base layer again, and now I can pull this down, make sure I have my grab tool, and I'm just going to pull it onto my image. Now you can see that these, even though these are 300 dpi high res, they're not going to be the same dimensions as whatever you shot at, but because you're not using it as a standalone product, all you do is hit your Command T for transform and hold down your Shift key and drag it on. Click enter. Now there's a couple of different ways you can use different blend modes, or you can just start by reducing the opacity in a normal blend mode like this. And if you do it like this, I honestly love this effect, but here's what I suggest. Turn that layer off for now, click on your background layer again, go up to select subject, and Photoshop is going to do its best to select your subject and make it the best possible selection it can. It's not always good. You can see here that it's not selected the stool. So I usually grab my lasso tool and I hold down my Alt Option key, and that helps me deselect a certain part of the selection. And I'm just gonna deselect all of that stool because I want the flowers to kind of come around it. And usually what I'll do is I'll zoom right in and just refine the mask by hand, and that's usually helpful. Again, you hold your Option or Alt key and you can subtract from your selection, like so. Okay, and then just go around like I can see here. If I zoom in, holding my shift key down, and now I can add that selection to my mask. Hair can be tricky. I just try to grab it all because we're really just going to feather our mask out and it's not going to be that much of an issue. So holding down my Option key, I'm just deselecting, and now I'm adding. So you can see the plus or minus sign on my little lasso tool, and that'll tell you what you're doing. So I did that wrong. So come back and reselect it, and then come in close and deselect this area. It doesn't have to be exact in here because we're going to brush a lot of that off. But I'm just going to reselect his hair and so make sure his ear is selected. See how it misses so much? And that's why I think the Adobe Camera Raw or Lightroom selection is just so much better. So just take your time, because the better your selection is, the better your results will be. So I can see all these little dots that tell me that those pixels are not selected. So I'm just going to come in here and refine this so that they are. And that's really fine. That's good enough. So what I'm going to do is go up to Select, Modify. I'm going to contract the selection by 1 pixel, Select, Modify, and Smooth by 2. Now I'm going to go Select, Save. And this way, I don't ever have to make that selection again. So now we're going to zoom out, and we're going to click on our lovely little texture above, and then you're going to choose this mask here. And then I'm going to reverse, so Command I to invert that selection. So now we can pull up our opacity and we can really see what we have going on here. There's so much fun things you can do, okay? You don't have to just use this as a basic background texture to add to your images. What I like to do is grab my white brush, because that's going to add back to this, and then choose a brush that's going to have a bit of texture, form to it, as opposed to just a soft brush. You can choose a foliage brush if you want. You can use these Goro leaves. Let's try these. And because I'm using white, and now I come in, I can start adding more of the floral textures to the image. Make sure we're on 100. And this way we can kind of add and make it look like it's three-dimensional, as opposed to just, you know, a overlay or a texture that you just plunked onto your image, right? So by using a brush, some kind of foliage brush or a floral brush, or just something that's going to add unique, interesting components to your image so that it can look a little bit more 3D. Like, I know there's not a lot of people that do this, but I just love how it really makes it look more three-dimensional and not like you just plunked a simple texture. Play with your brush size, so make sure you get a few different sizes in there. And this is from my favorite brush set, which you can get in my store as well. You can also get various brushes directly from Adobe. You do not need to buy mine. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about when you can actually make it look more three-dimensional. Just mask on various elements and it really does look really unique. I'm going to add a little bit to her hair just because the edges are kind of not perfect. Make my brush a bit bigger, maybe add a couple. Okay, so now you can play with various blend modes. You can try and see which suits it. I'm definitely thinking these darker ones down here are not going to be very good. You can try lighten. Lighten is always one of my favorite ones. And then you can reduce it a little bit like this. So this is what I'm talking about. There's just so much that you can do. It just depends really on what you want to accomplish with your image, right? So don't be afraid to play and maybe try various different brushes. Like there's a treetops one here, right here, that I think would actually suit this. So I'm going to rotate my image and I'm just going to come in here and add a little bit to the edges here and try and make it look like she's coming out of the backdrop instead of the backdrop just being plunked on. So I would encourage you to really just explore and see what you can come up with for this technique. I think it's really, really super fun. Okay, and now I'm using my black brush. I'm just going to paint some of her back here. Just a little bit like so. I really like these ones coming out of the background across his leg, onto the stool, around his little foot. Just something like this. I think it just really makes it look like it's not plunked on there, right? Okay, and then you can just, start adding curves adjustment layers that will help you blend the two together a little bit better. And you look at something like this and you can see that this image here is probably more matte than our subjects. So we're just going to reduce this effect down a little bit. But what I'm going to do is click on my background layer, come to my selective color, and I'm going to try to matte them out a bit just so that they look like they blend a bit more. So I'm just going to pull up my blacks. I'm going to actually add a little bit of red to them because there's a lot of red in the darker colors, and maybe a little bit of yellow. Okay, I'm going to duplicate this layer and merge all of these together, and then I can show you. So that's the difference. Do you see? It's very, very fun. You can also come into your retouch set and just do some really quick dodging and burning, which will help blend the two images together. I'm going to bump my flow down to about 60 and my opacity down to around 20. You don't have to be exact, obviously, but I'm just going to come in, and I'm still using that wrong brush. So I'll go back to a basic soft one. Click on there, make sure I got a white brush, and I'm just going to highlight her hair a little bit like that. I'm going to burn a little bit. So by increasing your shadows around these areas here, it really adds to the whole three-dimensional look of the combined images. So don't be afraid to just play and see what you can come up with. If you really focus on those shadows and just trying to make everything look more cohesive and seamless, in that, this was all done intentionally, you can really make this look 3D, like it was shot this way and not just an overlay that you put down. So don't be afraid to continue to manipulate the image. Don't leave it exactly as you receive it, because you want it to go with the image that you're working on and make it look like it actually was shot this way. So I'm just adding a little bit of dimension and contrast really. I'm going to lighten this area just a bit. And close your group, turn it on and off, and you can see now you can just reduce to suit. I'm going to go ahead and flatten. Okay, so that's how you would use creatively one of these floral texture vintage overlays and use it in a way that it does not look like it's just a texture you added. So this looks more like a 3D kind of image. So what I'm going to do is go into my old masters set of actions, and I'll just walk you through them. There's only 5 of them, but each of them is different, and each of them works really well for these more painting like portraits. So I'm going to start with George Washington and just click play. And the key with these is that straight out of the box is not the way you want to use them. You want to actually go in and manipulate them to suit your image the best. So open up and turn everything off except for the last one, which is the vintage wash. And to me, it's a little too yellow. So I'm just going to pull it down a little bit, somewhere around there. Turn on my next one. I can turn that one down a bit too, because you want it to suit the image, right? And this vintage tones here really ties this image together, I feel. But again, it's a little yellow. And this is our final matte layer, and we'll turn that down a bit. So close the whole group. That's before, that's after, and that's intended to be more of a vintage look to it. Okay, and obviously if you do this, you can go in and you can still further reduce the coloring to suit what you like better. So we'll turn that off. I'm going to go to the Louvre and turn that one on. Okay, same thing. Open up the whole group, turn everything off, get right to the bottom, which is contrast pop, and we're going to reduce that to suit. Turn on the next one, which is sepia. The next one is mute. It's just adding a bit of matte back. This is color tone. This is really reducing all the highlights, which I think really looks good. This is more of a warm matte, so I'm going to really further reduce that down. This is a skylight, so double click your gradient, and obviously the light source is coming from this direction here, so I'm just going to pull it over there, and then I'm going to really reduce it down too, because I don't want it to be too overpowering. Close your group. That's before, that's after. I think that one is really, really pretty, and that one is Louvre. Next one is Marie Antoinette. Open your whole group. And again, these are all entirely different from each other, and you can use them in any way that you like. So this one really reduced the coloring. I think I'm going to really pull that back because I don't want to get rid of my coloring. This next one is Master Contrast. Clearly it's too much for this image, so really pull that back. And I'm really looking at the highlights on their faces, so I'm at 13. Color toning, we'll pull this back. It's adding a little too much contrast again. Yellows. And this one just really darkens the yellows down. Next one is just the final matte. Close the whole group. That's before and that's after. And again, you could add a curves adjustment afterwards if you liked. Okay, turn that one off. Now we're going to do Rembrandt. Click play. Open the whole group. There's only 3 layers in this one. This one has a lot of gold. We're going to really reduce that. So I'm only at 4%, and now double click our gradient and just pull it over here like that. You can reduce it further. And the last one is really just a color toning, and I'm going to reduce that down. So close that one. That's before and after. So that one's super nice, Rembrandt. Next one is Versailles. Close all the layers. This first one is Vintage. We're just going to reduce this down. Next one is more of a yellow contrast, which looks good. This is our matte, so that's clearly way too strong for this because we don't want to lose the detail. And our final is a lighter matte, so we'll reduce it, close the group, and that's before and after. And our last one is our Old Masters finisher. So what this means is, let's say we have this one, which is our first one, or the Louvre, which I really liked. So what I'm going to do, just to show you, duplicate my background layer and merge the Louvre and the background layer together. And then what I'm going to do is change this to layer 1. And then go ahead and play my Old Masters finisher. So this is just going to help boost all of the stuff that you've done in your image already, right? So all it's doing is adding in kind of a finishing look to it, and it depends on your image. You can decide to reduce it further and then just leave it. But I think that this set, there's so much you can do with it, especially if you use these floral textured vintage backdrops like this, then you're really going to be able to create more of those painting like images. And keep in mind that, you know, a lot of these florals are going to be amazing for so many different uses. I use them constantly, and yeah, so there's your fairy before and after, and our lovely little kids. So if you have any questions, would like to see something else, or you have any other suggestions for videos, please leave your comments in the description, and I will see you in the next video.